for today. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق وسيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد, as I said, the strategy I'm taking with the explanation of this book is to try to give you guys an exposure to everything in it. So our first session was from chapter 1. Our second session was from chapter 2. Our first session was the introduction. Second session was from chapter 1. Third session was from chapter 2. Our fourth session now is going back to chapter 1, which is about the inner dimensions of worship, part 2. That's the title of the slide. مش كده, Sister Nur? Right? So part 2, the inner dimensions of worship. Then the next session, we're going to go back again to chapter 2. That way you get exposed to everything and it doesn't get too overwhelming to stick on one topic throughout for an extended period of time. Before I go into any of that, I mentioned in the beginning that most of what we're talking about today, and this is a summary of the book. This is a very, very beautiful book. Like we said, the whole precedent of this book is figuring myself out first, inwardly and outwardly. And that's the precursor to figuring my relationships out. That's part 3, right? So we have one chapter on the outward. That's acts of worship. And then we have one section on the inward. Those are an avoidance of sin and the actions of the heart and the effects of sins on the limbs. And then the third chapter is about figuring out my relationships. My relationship with Allah and my relationship with people. You see the deliberate presentation in this book? Figure myself out, then figure my relationships out. That's what the book's all about. Right? And we said all of this is going back to this big subject that we call adab, right? Etiquette, right? The etiquette of doing things. Someone might pray, the same prayer another person prays, yet the outcome is drastically different, right? Now, of course, this was not by design or preparation, but the subject of this course is actually very similar to the intensive that is next week. Inshallah, next week we have an intensive, prophetic living with Sheikh Yasser and myself, and you see the flyer for it over here. There's a QR code over there. If you like this subject and the way it's going, then next week is basically, and this wasn't by design, subhanAllah, it's just by qadar. We have 2 consecutive weeks of intensives, and the subject is very close to each other. If you like this subject and want to learn more from it, it's not the same book though, it's a different book. We're going to be going over, and that one is also for the family too. So it's for everybody. There's a kids program too with it. So you're welcome to come with that Saturday and Sunday. It's going to be in this masjid again, and you could scan the QR code and continue your study of this beautiful subject next weekend, inshallah ta'ala. Okay? So going back to the dimensions of worship, I want you guys to turn to page 52. Turn to page 52. Or I should say, no, there's something before that. Turn to page 48. Right? Turn to page 48. Turn to page 48. And he is basically going over the things that you should incorporate in your day. And he's speaking about this in terms of staying in the mosque until sunrise, but this stuff is general. He goes over the subject called wazifa. What is the wazifa? It is a certain regimen, a spiritual regiment, right? You guys with me? Wazifa means a spiritual regiment that I'm following and I'm incorporating. What does he say? Your time from after the morning prayer until sunrise should be divided between 4 types of spiritual work. Now, of course, we're weak. We're full of flaws, and we have a lot of work to do, right? So if you're like me, in that you can't imagine doing all of these in the morning, then try to do all of these in your day, right? What does he say? Your time from after the morning prayer until sunrise should be divided into 4 types of spiritual work. Supplication, 1. Remembrance, dhikr, 2. Recitation of Quran, 3. Wazifa fit tafakkur, 4. and then a regimen in reflection, 4. And then immediately after saying that, what does he say? Reflect upon your mistakes and sins, and the shortcomings and deficiencies in your worship of your master, and how you have exposed yourself to Allah's painful punishment and His great anger in many different ways. Again, Imam Ghazali is teaching us to speak to ourselves. He's not speaking to us. He's not speaking at us, right? He's teaching us to speak to ourselves, right? Now, look, Islam gives us ease. Islam is beautiful. Islam is fulfilling. Life is easy. We make it difficult sometimes. We make it difficult sometimes. Life is easy, we make it difficult. The ease in all of this, look at this, the sweetness in this. If I just actually, look at this easy fix to the way I choose to live my life. Daily spiritual checklist. He's giving me here on this page, what is this page all about? It is a daily spiritual checklist. That's what it is. And he's saying that you should incorporate in your day alongside dua, alongside dhikr, alongside reading Quran, alongside a fair dose of reflection, you should incorporate in it time where you really reflect on what you have done. Man, this is just like, it's so simple and basic that it's so amazingly profound. Imagine that. Like imagine if I dedicate a time in my day, when I first wake up or before I go to sleep, this is my day to actually think about what I've said and done today. I guarantee you, if someone's actually able to do that, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, what did I say? What conversations did I have? Why did I think like this about that person? Why did I treat this person like that? Why did I forget that? Why did I neglect that? If I start speaking to myself in this manner, a fixed set time every single day, I'm going to find that it's going to affect me drastically, big time. It's going to affect me big time in terms of my growth. What does he say after that? He says, وَتُرَتِّبُ بِتَدْبِيرِكَ أَوْرَادَكَ فِي جَمِيعِ يَوْمِكَ. What does he say? Organize your regular duties of worship for the entire day by means of careful planning, right? Rattib. What's the first one? Rattib, plan for your day spiritually. Imagine like there's people, mashallah, who are very, very organized with their time. They'll like make task lists. So, I'm going to do this at this time and this and that time. And there's a lot of people who are able to do that. And that's pretty cool if you're actually able to learn that skill. But anyway, he's telling us to do that for our souls. Just like you do financial planning, do spiritual planning. You're doing financial planning. How much you want to spend on this and that. How are you going to save up your money? What are you going to invest in? You care that much about your stocks and your investments. Please care at least as much as that in your spiritual planning. Spiritual planning is a pretty cool concept that he tells us about here. What does he say? Rattib, that's the first one. Organize yourself spiritually. And then he says after that, تحرز من التعرض لسخط الله. The first, all right, so plan and then avoid anything in your day that would expose you to Allah's wrath. And then the third thing, so rattib, taharraz, then he says inwi, intend. Make the intention of having goodwill towards all Muslim and resolve that your entire day will be occupied only with obedience to Allah Most High. You see, this seems basic, inwi. Have an intention. You can't do it, at least have an intention to do it. You know, it's one of the beautiful things. It's actually one of the sources of a lot of goodness. Goodwill comes about by having good intentions, right? Sometimes the person might be very limited in what they're capable to do, but because they have such beautiful and profound intentions, they get so much reward and blessings in all the things that they do. Multiplying your deeds by multiplying your intentions. That's a concept that the scholars, they teach us. The catalyst for spiritual revival is what? First, having beautiful intentions. And two, remembering that there is a need for a sense of urgency because time is limited, right? So these are 4 things that he gives us for our spiritual checklist. I'm going to say them again. Organize yourself spiritually. Avoid anything in your day that you know will incur Allah's wrath. Make an intention to actually avoid that. Intend beautiful things. You know, there is a person who got to Jannah because he had beautiful intentions towards others. Right? We know the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. There is a person who never harbored ill will towards Muslims. This one thing made him worthy of being in Jannah. That's amazing. That never holding any grudges or ill will or negative sentiments towards others, cleansing the heart just from this one thing. It's such a beautiful thing, brothers and sisters. So, rattib, taharra, zinwi. Right? Organize, avoid, intend. And then the fourth thing that he tells us is وَلَا تَدَعْ عَنْكَ التَّفَكُّرَ فِي قُرْبِ الْأَجَلِ وَحُلُولِ الْمَوْتِ. Don't ever stop for a second to abandon thinking about how near your death may be. Do not neglect to reflect upon the nearness of your end, upon the approach of death that cuts short all hopes, upon the removal of all matters from the domain of your free will. Right? So that's one beautiful thing that I saw here that I thought is worthy of reflecting on. And again, what was the highlight there? Spiritual checklist. All right? If you go to page 53, he tells us on page 53, go to page 52 or 53. They're both the Arabic and the English. He tells us on page 52 and 53 that people are of varying levels. You know what? Not everyone could dedicate themselves to learning, right? Not everyone can. Not everyone has that capacity and that luxury. Some people are just so overwhelmed with something else that their mind is occupied with a different type of work. So people are of varying stations. Some people, their station is one of learning and teaching. Other people, their station is of worship and devotion. And others yet, their station is of service and doing goodness for others. And others yet, others are overwhelmed with finding their means of livelihood and survival. Right? And he breaks down this in pages. So what does he say here? He says, the first of these stations, and الأولى وهي الأفضل أن تصرفه إلى طلب العلم النافع في الدين دون الفضول الذي أكب الناس عليه وسموه علما. Right? So he says here, focus on what is truly beneficial for you to learn. Right? And subhanAllah, there's some people that they're blessed with this path. I remember, one of my teachers, that I had in Egypt, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve him. He's older in age now. You'd say, not severely old, but we would say he's perhaps in his 60s, relatively young. No offense to anyone in their 60s here. MashaAllah, we have people in their 60s among us who have the energy to learn. May Allah bless them and give them good health always. Allahumma ameen. So look, this sheikh, he dedicated his life to learning. Every single day, you know what he does? He prays Fajr and he spends the first 7 hours of his day reading. Literally, that's his job. He stays Fajr all the way to Dhuhr, not wasting a minute. That's his reading time. His reading time is from Fajr to Dhuhr, right? About 7 hours of straight reading. And then after Dhuhr, that's when he starts his day and goes out to work. It's a nice blessing to have that type of schedule, right? So, but anyway, that's the first category, he says. The second category of people, he mentions a lot of details about that. I'm not going to get into them because there's no time. The second one, الحالة الثانية ألا تقدر على تحصيل العلم النافع. If you are unable to acquire useful knowledge, but spend your time engaged in the duties of worship, such as remembrance of Allah, recitation of the Quran, glorification, extra prayers. This is among the stations of the worshippers and the way of the righteous. And by this method, you will also be of the successful ones. Some people, Allah opens for them the door of worship and they excel in it. This third one, look at this. الحالة الثالثة أن تشتغل بما توصل به خيرا إلى المسلمين. The third possible way is to spend your time in working on something that will bring benefit to people, and by which you will bring happiness to the hearts of believers. وتدخل منه سرورا على قلوب المؤمنين. That your service is, or your station is being in the service, one of khidmah, one in being on the service of, that's very prophetic in nature. This third station is actually a very beautiful one. For example, making the experience for those who want to worship Allah facilitated. It's a beautiful thing, right? Imagine, like now, we have an example from the Sunnah about someone who's able to take care of the masjid, right? But the example from the Sunnah is what? During the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the caretaker of the masjid. Some narrations say it was a male, some say it was a female. There's different narrations. The caretaker of the masjid passed away, and the companions buried the caretaker. And they didn't tell the Prophet ﷺ. And the Prophet ﷺ asked, where is so-and-so? And they told him that that person passed away. So then the Prophet ﷺ said, أَفَلَا كُنْتُمْ أَذَنْتُمُونِ بِهَا? Why didn't you tell me that she passed away? In the narration that says it was a female. دُلُّونِي عَلَى قَبْرِهَا. Take me to her grave. The Prophet ﷺ himself, خَيْرُ الْخَلْقِ أَجْمَعٍ, went to this person who was in the service of the masjid and went and prayed and made dua for this person who passed away, who was in the service and the khidmah of others. This is a beautiful station to be in, brothers and sisters. فَكُلُّ ذَلِكَ أَفْضَلُ مِنَ النَّوَافِلِ فَإِنَّ هَذِهِ عِبَادَاتٌ وَفِيهَا رِفْقٌ بِالْمُسْلِمِينَ. He says here, look, sometimes if Allah doesn't open for you, look, this teaches us something. Take this, brothers and sisters. Everyone has something. No one has everything. This is a principle to live by. Everyone has something. No one has everything. Everyone has something. No one has everything. Allah Azza wa Jal قَسَّمَ الْأَرْزَاقَ بَيْنَ عِبَادِهِ. Allah distributed rizq and provisions. For some He gave ilm, for some He gave money, for some He gave profound character, for some He gave the ability to serve others, for some He made their service to humanity is dealing with the trials they were afflicted with. They don't have the disposition or the know-how or the ability. This person is a person of bala. This person, تَعَبَّدَهُ اللَّهُ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ بِالْبَلَاءِ. No money, no power, no knowledge. A whole laundry list of difficulties, poverty, illness, lack of opportunity, you name it. But they have such a profound heart that they embrace this with iman, sabr. And you find that their dua is so powerful that Allah Azza wa Jal sends down the rain by the blessings of their dua. يُسْتَسْقَى الْغَمَامُ بِهِمْ. Right? There's some people that's their role in this dunya. Their role in this dunya is to deal with a whole lot of things, and they have this dua that they make, and because of their dua, Allah Azza wa Jal gives victory to إِنَّمَا تُنصَرُونَ وَتُرْزَقُونَ بِضُعَفَائِكُمْ. Our deen is beautiful. That's why Imam Shafi'i, again, this is Imam Shafi'i. I'm not talking about any nobody or someone did little with their life. I'm talking about Imam Shafi'i, Muhammad ibn Idris al-Shafi'i, one of the great imams of our past. You know what he said? He said, صحبت الصوفية فلم أتعلم منهم إلا عبارتين. He said, I spent time with people who have invested themselves in spirituality for a lifetime. I spent many years with them. And I've learned from them two things. What are these two things? One of them, he said, is from the words of the Prophet ﷺ. He said, ارضى بما قسم الله لك تكن أغنى الناس. Right? The first thing I learned is be content, truly content with what Allah has apportioned for you. You'll be the richest person. Right? That's one thing that he learned. The second thing that he learned, he says, al-waqtu kas-sayf. Right? Time is like a sword. If you take it and you grip it, then you'll be saved from the injury that it might cause to you. Imagine the sword's just like being flailed around left and right. You grab it, you protect yourself, right? Take advantage of time. Or else, time's gonna hurt you. Right? If you don't take advantage of time, it's going to come back to be a source of great regret on the day of judgment. Right? So again, this is what he says. That shows you that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made people in stations. وَمَا مِنَّا إِلَّا لَهُ مَقَامٌ مَعْلُومٌ. This is what the Quran says about the angels. Every one of us has a known station. Same thing for the believers. Everyone has a known station. And if I know this station and maximize my benefit from it, I'll be able to produce the best of what I could produce from it. Right? So anyway, getting back to what he says, al-iktisab wa hifdh ad-din. Everyone has something. And then what does he say? The fourth state is that Lacking the strength for these things, you occupy yourself with your own needs, earning a living to take care of yourself and your family. Some people don't have the capacity. I don't have the capacity to give back. I don't have the capacity to serve. I don't have the knowledge to give. What do I have? What can I do? I can work really, really hard and provide for my family and teach the next generation. May Allah Azza wa Jal, this is a very beautiful endeavor. Wallahi, if, even just having this as a gift for the next generation, I dedicate my life to producing another human being or 2 or 3 or 10 that will be righteous believers for the next generation. Wallahi, it's one of the, for some people, this is their greatest blessing that they're going to go to their grave with, that they raised their kids properly, right? The greatest blessing that they're going to go to their grave with is that they spent time to actually raise their kids. It's not all about the grandeur. It's not about having large followings and thousands of people following you and people listening to you and being in the limelight. It's not about that. It's not always about that, right? Even this beautiful act of service, wallahi, it could save you from the brinks of hellfire. Just one thing could save you. You produce one righteous son or one righteous daughter, and after you're long gone in your grave, everything that this person is doing is being racking up in your scale. Hasanat, right? So, child care is actually one of the most rewarding spiritual transactions you could be in. Child care, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless parents, especially our moms, for what they dedicate to that. Child care is one of the most spiritual transactions you can engage in. So anyway, this is what he says in this one. This is the next one here. So he says here, on the next page, page 56, if you're with me, he says, and this is the lowest of the levels of religion, for below it are the grazing grounds of the devil. All right, if you can't teach, if you can't give, if you can't serve, and if you can't even take care of your own responsibilities, everything beyond that is what? The grazing grounds of the devils, which you would enter as a result of working in that which ruins your religion or by hurting one of the slaves of Allah, right? Be one of these 4 people. That's it. These are the 4 stations. Be one of these 4 people. This is the level of those who are destroyed, so beware of being at this level. He says, look, after this, you want to know what's success or failure? Subhanallah. There are people who go to their graves without a dime in their name, yet they're more successful than people with so much money in their retirement accounts and their stocks. There's people who go to their graves who are more successful than those. He says after that, اعلم أن العبد في حق دينه على 3 درجات إما سالم وإما رابح وإما خاسر. These are the 3 categories. There's the safe one. There's the one who suffices with doing the basic obligatory acts and does not commit sins. There is the one who is rabih, the one who profits. This is the one who voluntarily performs good deeds and voluntary acts. Then there's al-khasir, wal-'iyadhu billah, the loser. This is the one who falls short in his performance of what is expected of him, right? And he gives us another beautiful breakdown. In terms of his relationships with his fellows, a servant is one of 3 levels in your relationship with others. What does that mean? He gives us another breakdown here, another breakdown. The highest level is that he acts with them as the reverent and noble angels do. وهو أن يسعى في أغراضهم رفقا بهم وإدخالا للسرور على قلوبهم. 3 levels in terms of your relationships with others. Gems that he's giving us. You're either that person who is striving to bring happiness to the hearts of others by doing acts of kindness. The middle ground is أن ينزل, this is an intense expression, أن ينزل منزلة البهائم والجمادات في حقهم. The middle path is that he be with them as an animal or an inanimate object would be. What does that mean? لا يرجى, not that one. فلا ينالهم خيره ولكن يكف عنهم شره. What does that mean? He may not bring them good, but he does not do them harm either. Right? So, a cow in the pastures, it's not going to harm me, most likely, unless, it tips over and falls on me. It's a different story, but why would that happen? But anyway, the point is, the cow is not going to harm you, right? He may not bring them good. It might bring me good. The cow's going to be better. The cow might give me milk, give me meat. He may bring them good, He may not bring them good, but he does not do them harm either. And then what does he say after that? So, أن ينزل منزلة البهائم والجمادات, right? The rocks outside, what do they help me with? They're not going to do anything for me, right? So they're not going to benefit me, but they won't harm me either, right? So what does he say the lowest level is? The level of the scorpions and the snakes. أن ينزل في حقهم منزلة العقارب والحيات والسباع الضاريات. What does he say? لا يرجى خيره ويتقى شره. These are the three types of people. People that are benefiting others, people that are not benefiting and not harming, and then people that are utterly injurious and harmful. What is that? This is the third category. That he be with them as a scorpion or as a serpent or a wild beast would be. No one hopes for good from him, and evil is feared of him. This is the third category of people. All right. So what does he say after this? And this is actually pretty funny. If you go to the next page, he says on the top of the next page, then if you cannot, all right, so therefore by the light of your day, you should occupy yourself only with that which benefits you in your akhirah, and with gaining those provisions in this life which you cannot dispense with to assist you towards your afterlife, right? So this is page 58. He says, if you cannot manage to fulfill the rights of your religion while associating with people, and you cannot remain safe, then solitude is better for you. You should adopt solitude, for in it is safety. Right? This is speaking about a certain reality, but then this is the funny part. Okay, look what he says here. If in your solitude, devilish insinuations draw you to what is displeasing to Allah. All right, so you're someone who doesn't benefit others, right? In fact, you may harm them. And when you're actually interacting with them, they're either harming you or you're harming them. Then you know what? Maybe you should avoid those types of gatherings. But then even when you're by yourself, what if you're by yourself? Harm is still happening. What does he say? This is funny. He says, he says at this point, and you cannot root them out with the duties of worship, then you should sleep, right? If you're someone who can't even avoid harm when you're all alone, right? Okay, so you're with people, a lot of destruction. You're by yourself, a lot of destruction. What should you do? That's it. خلاص, that's it. If you can't even avoid harm while you're awake, you might as well go to sleep. That is the best state for you and for us. Right? For you and for us. When we are unable to gain any spoils of battle, we are at least content with safety and defeat. But how sorry is the state of one, look at this is the funniest part. He says, but how sorry is the state of one who can only save his religion by making his life non-functional. After all, sleep is the brother of death. It is to suspend progress in life and join company with an inanimate thing. Heed this and you'll be divinely guided if Allah so wills. What is he trying to say here? Yani, if the only benefit in life comes about when you go to sleep, whenever you're awake, you're either harming yourself or harming others, you're like this train wreck waiting to happen, you're causing destruction wherever you go, then what good is it? What good is a life that whenever you're awake, it's only causing harm? This is something that he's telling us to reflect on when we think about our lives. Now, all of this is in the chapter on the dimensions of worship, by the way. But we want to actually get to some of the guidance that we have on worship. Now, this is what we're going to do. Someone asked, can we ask questions? And I completely forgot, and 2 hours later, I'm remembering that we're supposed to take questions. So, like I told you guys in the beginning, unfortunately, I like to talk a lot. So, I forget myself sometimes. But anyway, let's talk about the guidance on salah. We're going to do this for a few minutes, and then I'll take some questions. Okay? Let's do that. I'm going to put the book aside. Look, these are all ahadith. Virtues of salah. It tells us how important salat al-jama'ah is. Look at this. If 3 men in a village or in the desert make no arrangement for salat al-jama'ah, shaitan must have certainly overcome them. So observe salah in jama'ah. For the wolf eats up a solitary sheep that stays far from the flock, right? This one fix could probably save a person's life, right? I don't know how to figure this out on my own, right? I don't know how to figure this out on my own. So what am I going to do? I'm just going to be around good people. You know what? This being around good people is a solution to a lot of life's problems. You're with me? I don't know the answer to some things that are bothering me in my head. let me just try to be around good people. Maybe that'll fix everything in my head. Maybe it'll fix it, right? Let me go to 10 Salat al-Jama'ah. Let me go to Isha every single day. If I could go to Fajr, let me go to Fajr, right? Allah the Majestic and Mighty has written 5 prayers for mankind. And whoever does them and does not waste anything of them by making light of what is due to them, then there is a pact for him with Allah that He will admit him into the garden. Look, this hadith, what is it telling us? Take care of your salah, it'll be your key to Jannah. That's a way to simplify this. These salawat, if I take care of them, again, like it's not about some grand thing. Sometimes it's just me being a person who's devout in my salah, truly devout, that I really make it this transformative experience. That by itself could save me from the fire of hell. All right? Let's go to the next one. There's one hadith here that I'll share. And that's about one day the Messenger ﷺ prayed Fajr. Then he said, did so-and-so attend Fajr prayers? All right? And then he said, the rest of the hadith goes on, they said no. So, and then the Prophet ﷺ said, these 2 prayers are most burdensome for the munafiqeen. If they knew the virtues in them, they would have come, even if they had to crawl. And the virtue of the first row is like that of the row of the angels. If you knew its virtue, you would compete for it. A man's prayer with another man is greater in reward than his prayer alone. And a man's prayer with 2 other men is greater in reward than his prayer with 1 other man. The more people there are, the more beloved that it is to Allah. Allah loves it when we come together to worship Him. If you ever gone to Hajj or Umrah, you see that space, it's like you enter, it's like you enter this this alternate dimension. Right? How many of you guys here have gone for Hajj or Umrah? Right? Raise your hand. Allah, mashallah. People are different in that space. Sometimes they're not even different there. I'm not saying everyone's perfect there. Sometimes they're not even different there. But you will find that people are racing to do good things in that space. I'm serious. It's like, these are things you can't fake. Allahu Akbar. You can't fake these things. Man, if only the person who hasn't experienced Islam knew what's going on, it's literally like you're entering a new dimension. Like it's like a time warp. Like people step into this zone and they become different human beings. For the most part, most people experience this. This is not fake made up stuff. Where else on the face of the earth can you find like 100 people running to be in the first row than like in Masjid Nabawi or in the Haram of Mecca? Nowhere else. You're going to find people running to be in the first row. The only time they would ever do that, I mentioned this as an example for Ramadan. Like imagine if someone promised you that if you make it every single night of the last 10, if you attend in the masjid, like the masjid ICPC comes out with this really good deal. Attend every single night in the masjid in the last 10, and you get a check for $10,000 on Eid. Right? Imagine that. We should give Ibrahim the idea. He left. Sister Huma, pass it on to Brother Ibrahim. Right? Now rumors are going to spread. ICPC is giving out. Nah, I wish. So just attend the last 10 nights of Ramadan, and on the day of Eid, you're going to get a $10,000 check. People are going to be doing, and imagine this. Imagine if they make it a little bit more difficult. The condition in this is that you need to find a prayer spot inside the masjid. Right? If we actually do this, imagine in Clifton, they're giving us parking issues all the time. Oh my goodness, we'd literally, make national headlines. This mosque is terrorizing people with all the traffic it's causing, right? There you go, right? He heard his name, right? So the idea is this Ramadan, if people find a space in the masjid and they pray every single night in the last 10, they're going to get a $10,000 check. You agree? Oh, come on. You got to play along. Anyway, imagine this, Allah promises that in those last 10, there's one of these nights that's worth more than a lifetime. Imagine that. Which one's worth more, the $10,000 or a night in it that's better than the rest of your life, right? 1,000 shahr, 1,000 months, more than 80 plus years. Which one's better? But it's hard. Come on, $10,000. You know what I could buy with that? You know the debt I could pay off with that? Allahu Akbar, right? But still, look at what the Prophet ﷺ is telling us in this hadith. The Prophet ﷺ is telling us that there's so much goodness that happens when people come together to do good things. And this is why one of the most beautiful sights in Islam is when? Well, people come together for Eid. People come together. Why is it one of the most beautiful sights? Because people are wearing their best clothing and because we put out donuts and coffee? No, of course not. That's not why it's one of the best nights. Not because of the donuts and the coffee. And not best nights. Sorry, best days. It's because وَلْيَشْهَدْنَا الْخَيْرَ وَجَمَاعَةَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. The Prophet ﷺ said everyone should come out. Even if they can't pray, they should witness this massive gathering of people coming together to worship Allah Azza wa Jalla. There's a lot of blessings in that, right? Blessings of congregation. Virtues of adhan. All of these are things that are, look at this beautiful hadith. The Prophet ﷺ said to one of the companions the following: whenever you are in a remote area, in a wilderness, and you want to call adhan, raise your voice, because whoever hears the adhan, whether a human or a jinn or any other creature, will testify for you on the day of resurrection. This is a beautiful thing. Adhan is not just this thing that we use to call to salah, by the way. It's actually an act of worship. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allah. There's a lot of meanings in adhan. Every single act of worship that we do has this inner dimension to it. He says this later on. He says, how dare you say Allahu Akbar with your tongue, and you know that in the inside you're fraudulent. You have made other things greater in your heart. That's the actions of a fraud. May Allah not make us frauds, right? So look at these other virtues. Each of these acts of worship highlights virtues within it. The supplication between the adhan and the iqamah is never rejected, right? الدعاء بين الأذان والإقامة لا يرد. The Prophet ﷺ is telling you this, right? Maybe part of my devotion to Allah Azza wa Jalla needs to be taking advantage of these beautiful sunan. They say one of the hallmarks of guidance is when you see someone. That's why it's actually part of this book, by the way. Why is bidayatul hidayah? When you see someone, their heart is driven towards sunan and towards the actions of the Prophet ﷺ, it's a sign that guidance is in their hearts, right? There's a good sign for the person when they're attracted towards the sunnah. They want to do more. They want to follow the Prophet ﷺ's example in all of their affairs. So these are more things. On the Day of Judgment, the people who made adhan will have the longest necks on the Day of Resurrection, as the Prophet ﷺ says in the hadith. Virtues of cleansing impurities. These are more examples of the virtues of salah, right? We know the hadith. You guys know the hadith of the A'rabi who urinated in the masjid? It's a famous hadith. How many of you know this hadith? Raise your hand. The A'rabi, the Bedouin Arab who urinated in the masjid. A few of you know the hadith. All right, very good. Some of you don't. Who's this man? Again, this is not to give anyone ideas for the carpet, but they didn't have carpets back then. The masjid was not like this. The masjid had dirt. And this Bedouin Arab, he wasn't used to city life. And of course, back then, they did not have sarf sahih. They did not have sewage systems. So this man, he comes and he wants it to be a one-stop shop, right? The masjid is supposed to be a one-stop shop. Prays, finds himself a nice corner of the masjid, unloads, and then as he's unloading, the companions went crazy. What is this person doing? He just defiled the masjid. He urinated in the masjid. They were going, and the Prophet ﷺ said, hold it right there. Stop right there. So the virtues of cleansing from impurities, the Prophet ﷺ told them, take it easy. Right? When he finishes, go wash over the area, clean it from the filth and the najasa, and that's sufficient. So then he told the Prophet ﷺ, and he said this out loud, Allahumma arhamni warham Muhammada wa la tarham ma'ana ahada. Oh Allah, have mercy upon me and upon Muhammad, and don't have mercy on anyone else. Right? And again, he was very rigid in his understanding. So the Prophet ﷺ says, ضَيَّقْتَ وَاسِعًا. Right? Because the Prophet ﷺ is the only one who understood him. He didn't mean defile the masjid. So he said, have mercy on me and Muhammad, and don't have mercy on anyone else. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So anyway, other things, etiquettes with salah. It's a time of reverence. All right? Look at this. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so the time frame of salah is a reverent time. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says in this first hadith, how is it that some raise their eyes towards the sky during salah? And then he said, people must refrain from raising their eyes towards during the salah, or else their sights will certainly be snatched away. This is a hadith in Bukhari. What is this telling us? We should respect our salah. We should have reverence for salah. You know, one of the worst things that someone could do in terms of their salah, so much disregard for the masjid, for salah, is when they come to the masjid during Salat al-Jumu'ah and they just chill in the back, they're texting, they're talking to other people. Like, can you guys imagine someone talking in the masjid during Salat al-Jumu'ah? Can you imagine that? Can you guys imagine that? Yes? You can? You can imagine? You've seen it? All right. So rumor has it, and I don't know, I don't want to, but rumor has it that, you know, some of the sisters, because they're not required to pray Jumu'ah, downstairs, oblige themselves with feeling free to talk with each other during the khutbah. I can't imagine why they would do that. But anyway, the Prophet ﷺ says, whoever directs motions to his brother to be quiet, فَقَدْ لَغَى وَمَنْ لَغَى فَلَا جُمُعَةَ لَهُ. Right? Whoever plays with the stones. Some people, they're entering the masjid and they're greeting and hugging each other. Some people, they're entering the masjid and they're actually, it's very strange. It's not just sisters, by the way, because I'm giving the khutbah, I could see the people. I've had people during khutbah al-Jumu'ah answer a phone call. Very, very bizarre. They're listening to Salat al-Jumu'ah, someone's calling them and they're just talking with a low voice like no one could hear them, even though everyone could hear them, but they just don't realize it. Anyway, it's a very heinous thing to do. It's very disrespectful. To who? To who? Very disrespectful to who? To Allah. Right, forget about the khatib. Don't worry about the khatib. Worry about Allah. It's disrespectful to Allah Azza wa Jal to do that in the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's a time of reverence. I need to show regard and reverence for this. Now, okay, there's this, since we're talking about talking during salah, and we spoke about Jumu'ah, look at this beautiful story about, you guys know about the story about the companion who spoke during salah? You guys know that? You guys know that story? Raise your hand if you know that story. Raise your hand, right? Not many brothers, some sisters. Not many. You guys don't know the story? Oh, man. This is a story in the early days of Islam. This was before it was prohibited to talk during salah. So this companion, this was soon after that. You know, so in the early days of Islam, it wasn't prohibited to talk during salah, right? Soon after that, this companion who was a Bedouin, he did not know. So during salah, the man said, someone sneezed. So the man said, Yarhamukallah. May Allah have mercy on you. So then everyone started looking towards him out of the corner of their eyes, like, did we just hear someone say Yarhamukallah during salah? Like, that's so bizarre. Why would someone do that? And then he went a step further. He said, why are you all staring at me? مَا لَكُمْ تَنْظُرُونَ إِلَيْهِ. Right? This companion is not getting it. Like, everyone's, what did I do? He sneezed, I said, Yarhamukallah. So then the companions began hushing him and they hit their thighs so that he realized to be quiet. So then after he finished salah, the Prophet ﷺ turned around and he said, where's the one who was speaking during salah? So then the hadith says, فَجِيءَ بِي تَرْتَعِدُ فَرَائِصِي. I was brought forward and I was shivering and I was shaking. What's going to happen now? It's so embarrassing. What is the Prophet going to do? He's going to disgrace me. What am I going to do? So then he said about the Prophet ﷺ, فَبِأَبِي وَأُمِّي هُوَ مَا رَأَيْتُ مُعَلِّمًا قَبْلَهُ وَلَا بَعْدَهُ أَحْسَنَ تَعْلِيمًا مِنْهُ وَاللَّهِ مَا ضَرَبَنِي وَلَا نَهَرَنِي. Though he said about the Prophet ﷺ, I never saw a better teacher than the Prophet. He didn't yell at me. He didn't hit me. He didn't disgrace me. He said to me simple words. إِنَّ هَذِهِ الصَّلَاةَ لَا يَنْفَعُ فِيهَا شَيْءٌ مِنْ كَلَامِ النَّاسِ. You can't talk in salah. It is tasbih, it is tahmeed, it is tahleel, it is dhikrullah. It is the remembrance of Allah Azza wa Jal. So this is something that is about talking during prayers. I want to skip forward because there's no time. Let's go over some of the guidance on fasting. What time is it? What time is it? What is it? Allahu Akbar. What happened to time? Really? How did that much time pass? Okay, so in that case, we're going to actually give a short opportunity for people to ask questions. And then we'll have one more session, and we're going to finish with Salat al-Maghrib, inshallah. We're going to Salat al-Maghrib is around 5:30. We'll be done by 5:30, inshallah. So, who has questions? Anyone have questions they'd like to ask? Go ahead. Look, it's hard to say, but there's general markers that you could follow. Islam wants us to be consistent. It's best to be consistent and gradually build yourself up. That's why the hadith says of the Prophet ﷺ, the best of actions and most beloved actions to Allah are the most consistent ones. أحب الأعمال إلى الله عز وجل أدومها وإن قل, even if they're few, right? The Prophet ﷺ came into the masjid and he saw a rope tied between two pillars. And they said, this is the habl of Zainab. This is the rope of Zainab. Whenever she would get tired, she would lean over on it so she could stay praying. Prophet ﷺ said, Hullu, undo this. لِيُصَلِّ أَحَدُكُمْ نَشَاطًا. You guys should pray to the max of your ability. And the max because you have energy. Don't overdo it. So what? Be consistent. Now, everyone's nashat is going to be different. So the best thing I should possibly do, instead of shooting up really quickly and come crashing down really quickly, and this is, by the way, a good thing for Ramadan, right? Just be consistent. Be consistent with what you could possibly do, and slowly lift the bar. So what I would say is, if you do this incrementally, if you add things slowly to your responsibilities, then, look, the shaitan, he will drive you to extremes because he wants you to give up. So in general, avoid extremes, whether it's from the shaitan or from the nafs, and just be consistent, and it'll help resolve your issue. Just incrementally grow. You're going to one class this semester, and you feel like you could do more next time, start going to 2 classes. You're going to one prayer consistently every single day, all right, then try to add it and add a second prayer. You're doing 2 rak'ahs of extra prayers, then incrementally add from there. Just follow that manhaj in everything you do in your life, and it'll help you avoid a lot of difficulty. Yes? All right. How do you balance between not being hypercritical and not praising yourself? Look, first off, it takes a lot of self-accountability and a lot of self-awareness, right? You need to be someone who, look, if I know, I need to really study myself. That's why I say it's a lifetime. It's going to take a lifetime for you to get to know yourself. You know, one of the Salaf, what he said? I struggled with my intention for 20 years until I felt I was able to start commandeering it. So if I'm someone who's really committed to this path, I'm going to start learning a lot about myself. The one who hasn't invested a day in growing spiritually and thinks, oh, I know myself, I know what I need, I have myself figured out, is a person who is not in a very good place, right? That language is never in the language of the believer. The believer is always leaving room for some doubt of the possibility of a corrupt intention, of weakness in my heart. So what I'm going to try to do, basically what I'm trying to say is, there's no need for me to be publicly hypercritical of myself. That's not something that's expected of. I'm not expected to say, oh, I'm a loser, oh, I'm a failure, oh, I'm this. But between me and myself, I need to just be honest and genuine with what I see as an actual flaw. It's not about emotionally triggering myself about my flaws. It's about me being honest with myself. All right, what could I have really done better? Well, what rubric do I have to follow? I have the Quran, I have the Sunnah, I have the teachings of my deen. That is the impartial standard I have to follow. Impartial, it's not biased, right? So I could measure my actions according to that. Praise of myself, well, I need to be very, very careful here, because this is, look, even the Quran tells us to follow this methodology. Think once, twice, and thrice before you're ever going to say something to praise yourself, because you really need to question, is there really a need for it? The Quran tells us, إِن تُبْدُوا الصَّدَقَاتِ فَنِعِمَّا هِي. if you give your charities in public, they're good, they're fine, as long as you have the right intention. وَإِن تُخْفُوهَا وَتُؤْتُوهَا الْفُقَرَاءَ فَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ. If you were to conceal your acts, that's better for you. Why? Because it's going to be easier for your intention. So be very, very careful not to praise yourself. Is there really a need? Well, when would there be a need? Well, if I have an expertise, or if I have a know-how and a knowledge that people could benefit from, then I can be thoughtful in when to expose that to others for the purpose of benefiting them. If it's for the purpose of praise, just to praise myself, well, then why would I do that? I need to really ask myself, why am I saying these things about me, myself, and I? Is there any proposed benefit? This is how I would look at it. If there's a benefit and an opportunity for reward, seek it. If not, then think about it many times before you consider doing it. Wallahu a'lam. Yeah. Any questions from the brothers? One question, and then we're going to take our break. Yes. Yeah. Well, he gives us أربع أحوال نافعة. These are أربع وظائف. These are 4 stations. غيرها في أحوال طبعا يعني من الخسارة والهلاك والدمار. These are the bad. From the good ones, this is the ones he gives us. يعني إما أن تعلم وإما أن تنفق وإما أن تعين وإما أن تكف شرك عن الناس وتنشغل بالخير بنفسك يعني. So which one is better? Just so everyone understands what he's saying. Which one's better? Servicing others or worship? Servicing others or worship? I would say this, be careful. Be careful in saying which one's best. Because sometimes, what's best in one situation is not best in another one. Right? My nafs needs different things. Sometimes it needs ibadah. Right? I'll give you a good example. Let's say if someone says service of others is the best. Right? It's better than worship, personal, private worship. Right? Good? All right, let's go to Ramadan. I have an opportunity to volunteer in Ramadan. Right? The administration might not like this. Right? No, I think they will. They'll agree with me. So I'm going to volunteer every single night of Ramadan for the entire night. And I'm not going to pray a single 2 rak'ahs of Taraweeh. Right? So I got a whole bunch of service, but no worship. Good or bad? Good or bad? Why is it bad? You're going to burn out. Your heart needs this and it needs that. Right? So saying which one is the best, it depends. في بعض الحالات قلبي, my heart needs khidmah. I need to experience serving others because it's going to humble me. Right? And then sometimes it needs ibadah because that's hayat al-qalb. This is the lifeline of the heart. If I don't have ibadah, then what's good of service if I'm going to burn out by the end of the month? Who am I going to help? Right? So I need to pace myself. I need everything. I need all of this. Wallahu alam. Yeah. That's how I'd answer that question. We're going to take our break now. And inshallah, we'll continue for the last session in 5 minutes, inshallah. We're going to take a 5-minute break, move around, move your legs. And inshallah, we'll take our last session after that.